This way, anyone who wants to see this afterwards has the ability to. We want to post questions. I'm going to say to you all, don't hesitate to ask. There's probably a lot of your burning questions that other people have as well. So I want to make certain that things that are on your mind, what's happening, are addressed. I'm going to ask everybody if you can mute yourself until you have a question, so that way we're not getting a lot of different backgrounds, because I know it gets hard to hear, and I know a lot of people have questions. This session will last about 45 minutes, and this way if it carries over a little bit, that's okay. And I'm also going to say if there's things that we need to follow up on, we can certainly do that. So let me begin by saying hello. My name is Megan Bennett. I'm the Superintendent of Schools here in Region 12. You all see Mrs. Coelho, who we know and love, so she's no stranger to anyone here. Additionally, I see we've got our president of the PTO, so thank you, Diana, for setting up everything. And I'm still letting people in as we speak, so we're gonna get big, we're gonna get small, but here we are. I sent out the opening guidance on Friday. I hope you all received the 36-page, really dense one, as well as the Cliff Notes version, the ABCs of how to reopen, just to give everybody kind of a quick snapshot. And I'm going to say again, first thing I'm going to ask is if people can just mute themselves until you do have a question, so that way if there's no background competition. So when we released that document, the governor had said to all of the superintendents that each district had to put in a 3-phase plan. The first phase was the full opening. We had to do a hybrid, and then we had to do a full distance model. That was our requirement. And the statement was, because everybody's going back full. So plan for all of these things, make certain you're designing your classrooms, you're coming back full. So on Monday, during his press conference, the governor said something different. And he started to talk about flexibility. And I'm going to say to you, I don't know where we stand on that, because that was not anything that was discussed with us in advance. That is something in which we have to come around and say, what does that mean? What are the requirements to go to each one of these phases? What does that look like with our Department of Health? So I'm going to say with some blushing that's happening that I don't know some of the answers with regards to the new terms of how we get to re-enter school. Right now, as of today, Region 12 is coming back as a full reopening on August 31st. That said, and everything I say is, as of today, that's what we know to be true. Kathy and I were just joking because we got a 38-page addendum to the reopening plan today. So things are still coming in fast and furious. We're going to make certain we're designing towards CDC requirements. We are trying to get 6 feet to the best extent possible. So with those things that are out there, I gave you just really broad brush strokes, because I really want to hear from you about what are some of your questions that you have. And I'm also going to, as you're asking these questions, one of the things I want everyone to feel during these meetings is there is no judgment. We are caring for your babies, but they are your babies. The part of the plan that we know with 100% certainty is that families have choice. And if we're not able to meet to the standards that you feel are safest for your children, you have that choice not to send them and to access our distance learning opportunity. But I don't want anyone to feel there's judgment in either direction. This is one in which we recognize there is a personal choice that is happening with families. And I really fear when I read some of these Facebook things or what's happening, that people are either shamed into a decision, judged because they have an opinion. This is one in which I'm going to say we all know there are no right answers. Our experts are still trying to figure this out. So please know in advance, there are no questions that are going to come with any judgment, and we will seek answers if we don't have them. Okay, now I'll open up the floor of anybody who does have any questions. Yes, sorry, I see Carrie. Oh, Carrie, I can't hear you. Is it?
Are you muted, Carrie? Check your mute button.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear
Yep.
you. Yes, thank you.
Sorry, it was set for if I had headphones on.
Oh, good.
I've got two questions.
Yes, please.
First one being, are you able to provide us with the numbers for each grade of how many children they're going to be in each class? I know that that might change over the next couple of weeks, but you know, even a broad stroke on that. My second question is, do we know if there are going to be any asynchronous learning opportunities available for people that are like, parents are working full time, they aren't able, you know, daycare can't provide schooling during the day, you know, some kind of ability for them to either watch videos later that are from the live classes or whatnot. So those are my two questions.
That's a good opening argument. And so to say to you, I can tell you within the opening plan, we did put in the numbers. And so if you'll excuse me for 1 second, I can tell you what we have within the numbers. Looking at on page 26 of our reopening document, under Burnham for kindergarten, we have 8. First grade, we have 12. Second grade, we have 11. Third grade, we have 15. Fourth grade, we have 4. And fifth grade, we have 13. Now I am going to tell you, numbers change. We have gotten different, knowing that in our survey, I asked people the question, yes or no, in the survey. And please know, no one is bound to that, but it does help us for some of those plannings. So I can tell you what I am seeing from those numbers. We are planning for those numbers to be in class, but right now what I'm seeing is backing off from those numbers. Kathy's currently looking at the configurations because we know with the multi-age, that would be a big group, and we're trying everything to avoid some of that big grouping. But looking at what are the best configurations, because we don't want to lose the beauty of the multi-age model. So it's definitely taking some different ways to think about it, and I think that's still in the plan. But everything that we're trying to do, I can tell you, I have said no to a lot of tuition and families.
So can I make a comment?
Please.
No, so our numbers have decreased a little bit. First grade has 11 and second grade now has 9. So my thinking wrapped around, and it's still in the planning phase, is K1 will be grouped together, and second grade will be in the second room, although the 2 teachers will work among both. And in third, fourth, and fifth, I will have third graders grouped together, and fourth, because I only have a small number of fourth and fifth will work together. And that, if you recall upstairs, that community room, it's huge. So it very nicely fits the fourth and fifth graders. So that's where we are at the moment, but looking at the survey, we do have a couple of folks that are thinking they're going to opt with distance learning. So that can change on a daily basis. We've also had a lot of folks inquire moving into our district, which is a plus. It's a nice thing, although it's tricky around COVID, the COVID time. So anyway, that's where we are at the moment.
So the second part of your question, Carrie, you had asked about the asynchronous component to it. And right now, we are primarily looking at the distance learning opportunity being synchronous. I will be very honest with you, I cannot run 2 school districts. And to know that teachers would have to plan for 2 lessons in the same day, it really is beyond our bandwidth. So as far as we will work with families if there are specific, but I don't want to overpromise. I want to be very honest with people. Distance learning is kind of learning on the purviews of. We will be having webcams. We will be having I keep telling everybody we're going to be running like a German train station next year. You know, like this is what time it starts, because that way children who are accessing remotely can get on at 9 o'clock. From 9 to 9:20, they have access to the distance learning. We're asking teachers to have their lesson plans to families by Friday, the week before the lessons are going to happen, so that way you have assignments and things that may happen during that week. So families need to navigate that, but we are asking families to adhere to the schooling schedule, because that will be needed. So there is more demand than what happened with our distance learning in the past. Now, that said, that is when distance learning is the choice of the family. It's different when if we are put into the closure of the school building again, because at that time we would go back more towards some asynchronous and synchronous combinations that would be happening. So did I answer to satisfaction? Okay.
You did, and thank you. I did read through that long document, but obviously I missed the numbers. So,
I'm going to tell you, I've read it ad nauseum, and now all I can see is like my typos in it. So,
okay, thanks.
Okay.
That all makes perfect sense.
Okay, thank you. Questions that we have still? Yes, hang on. I see Amanda.
I have a question about the possibility of the hybrid model.
Yes.
And it was said in there how the students would be separated according to the alphabet.
Mm-hmm.
One of my sons is in that super, super small class. And I'm wondering, separating it by would they even do that for that small class? Because I feel like separating, well, last year was only 3 kids, now it might be 4. Would be pretty traumatic to the one kid that might not be there.
Completely understood. So yes, there's some broad brush strokes that happened in my document, because one of the things that we were trying to do is, if Chippewa has, you know, is in an A day, everybody's in that A day, so that way if there's childcare, what have you, trying to keep families together, so that way it's not as demanding on family resources. The question of that class of 4, I also know when Kathy was talking, she had mentioned that there's some classes that may be combined. So my answer, and it's a horrible answer, is going to be, it depends. So that's, you know, if it is something where we say, no, that cohort stayed intact, well, then it would either be a cohort A or a cohort B. We can look at those things. But yes, I will say there are generalities that are in this document that, you know, I'm going to apologize for, because we had to make the same thing that was for Chippewa that was going to be for Burnham, where we know that there's some discrepancies even when we're talking about lunches. But I also want people to know, do not count on my child's best friend is in the front of the alphabet, I'm at the end of the alphabet. I can't make changes like that. As far as accountability wise, it becomes too overbearing to have us navigate through. So there are things that I'm going to say, I apologize, I'm going to create some lopsided situations. But if it is something that we see is actually best, you know, I completely agree with what you're saying. If all the 4th graders are there to have 3 and then 1 home, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
But it would also depend upon the parent too, because if one of the children have a sibling, that sibling may have to go at a different time than the other siblings. So it's really working it out with the family. But it does make sense to have all 4 together, so the teachers are not doing it twice, right?
It does. And so I do want to let everybody know that this is the beauty of a small school district, though, too. We can talk about individual situations. We can discuss all of these things, but there are things that I need people to know. There's honest bad news. You know, there are times in which we're really accommodating, and we love having our volunteers and visitors coming in. And I'm going to tell you all, no, not this year. We're not going to be able to have that. We're going to be separating you from students at the door. We need to get everybody in. We're trying to create as safe as possible moment. I keep saying to people, we really We want to keep schools open for as long as safely possible. Other questions that we have? I have one, and if it's okay, then I'm going to read. If distance learning is chosen for next year, will there be an option for students to go back to the classroom later in the year for any other reason? That is a fantastic question, and I'm going to say to you, yes, it's not a jail sentence to be distance learning. However, I am going to ask for continuity's sake. Decisions should be to the best of the ability made by quarter. So that way there's a consistent learning expectation. The other reason that I am asking, because we also know circumstances may change on a dime, I am asking for at least a week, if not more's notice, so that way if there's a big difference between now I've moved desks to accommodate for all the children in there, if we have to re-navigate how that orientation is going to happen, I need time to prepare for a safe environment. Everything we are doing takes individualized, learning environment, which means children will have their own individual manipulatives. They will have their own individual, everything's individualized. So if you change your mind midstream and don't give us enough notice, I can't guarantee a safe situation. And so that's where advance notice is necessary. But no, choosing distance learning to start the year does not have to be that is what you continue by choice until the end of the year. Other questions? And it was absolutely, I think, Ropiak, Mr. Ropiak, Ms. Ropiak, I don't know which, using the chat is also absolutely available. So I'm watching for that. So if there are things that you're thinking.
Can I address a question that was given to me? I think some people might be thinking the same question. So I had a parent email me about backpacks and about whether or not the students will be bringing their devices back and forth. I think initially at the beginning of the year, we have to work up to it. I think initially they might not, but eventually they probably will, so plan for that. And I see a smile on someone's face because I know that you wanted the answer to that. So I'm not positive about K1, but obviously 2 through 5th grade, your children will get Chromebooks, and then iPads will eventually be given to K and 1. So we have to really teach kids what to do with them. So at some point they will start bringing them back and forth. I also encourage families to think about downsizing the amount of stuff that goes in the backpack, because the backpack is going to go on the back of chairs with their lunchbox and their water bottle. So make sure you clean out those backpacks on a daily basis so that they're not carrying a lot of stuff into school.
So one of the things that you will be hearing, especially if you are an incoming 2nd grade parent, we will be reaching out to you because your child is going to swap from that iPad going to a Chromebook. So we do have where it's 2 through 12 that they are utilizing our Chromebooks, and it is K and 1 that use the iPads, and really it's because one's a production machine and one's a consumption machine. So we are going to be coordinating those closer to school. Kathy, I saw a question that was, the question was, how will parent drop off and parent pick up work? Can you talk a little bit about some
that's a great question. So you will be getting sort of like the ABC kind of thing that Megan sent out too, but more specific to our school. Drop off will be in the front of the building. There'll be a greeter there. We're going to be taking temps. As kids get off the bus, they will get their temperature and then they'll be able to enter. If you are parking your car and dropping off your child, you need to walk them to the door. You need to wait until they get their temp taken, and then they can come in. If you would prefer to be a car drop-off, in other words, drive in the circle after the buses have come, you can start coming at about 8:50. We want to make sure the buses are in. You can pull up to the front. Your child needs to get out of the passenger side. You have to wait there until we take the temp, and then we'll wave and say you're all good, and then have your child come in. For pickup at the end of the day, it's all going to be in the gym. So you're going to need to park your car and walk around the building and go to the double gym doors. Those doors will be wide open. There'll be a couple of staff members in there. There'll be a sign-out sheet. The children will be seated with distance between them, alphabetized by family name, and the staff member will then get the children or child and bring them to you, and then you can take them. We encourage you to bring your own pencil or pen to sign out. If not, we'll have sanitizer there and some extra pens, but you know, we want to be really safe. You won't be able to enter into the building, so the doors will be wide open in both scenarios. Any questions about that? Okay.
Thank you. And while you were talking, 2 more questions that came in. The first one was asking about families and the expectation for social distancing. Whenever you're going to be on school grounds, we are asking that there's the 6 feet distance. Children will have their masks on when they exit the school. I can tell you our summer school students have been amazing about it, but don't get me wrong. They get in their car and you just see this, boom. But they really have been very rule bound, and some of our students are most compromised and have sensory issues and really just have done an amazing job. But the question was the expectation of the families and knowing that there's also travel bans. I will be putting out something to remind families once we get towards that week 2 before school starts. A reminder, right now we have 31 states that are part of this travel ban. You are to self-quarantine if you go to those states. So just recognizing, and this is what I keep saying to everybody, is we're trying to make certain everybody recognizes we're trying to keep community health. So, you know, even though I might have just gone here or just gone there, we are relying on one another to make certain we're keeping each other safe. But the states are really starting to populate about which ones we can't go to. And at some point we're going to be 49, we're the 50th. But it's one that it's very important, and I will be reminding families of that travel restriction going forward and what it means for a return to school. So again, right now everything is voluntary from our part. We know that the state has put in its own, if anybody violates these things, what happens. And again, we really need to be very conscious. There are things about, in working with the Department of Health, everything, whether you're open or closed, is based on how many cases you have in a small area within a small school, you know, what that goes to your percentage in population. With a small school, every person counts. So, you know, just recognizing some of those things that just, again, community support for that. And I just want to make certain I didn't. Sarah, did I answer that question okay? You can thumbs up yes or no in the chat box. And while I wait for her answer, there was a question about being able to take the bus at some point during the year if they decide they're going to be driving students. Absolutely yes. We actually plan bus routes for everyone to be on the bus. We plan them this way. I can tell you in all of Region 12, our biggest bus has 46 students. The ridership on that bus is 25. So even though I plan that bus as if 46 students will be on it, however, some are student drivers, some, you know, regular parents come in, but yet we assign that bus as if everybody was going to come to it. So it is well within your rights to engage going back on the bus. I would say again, let us know in advance, because those bus drivers get really good about just going past the stop if they know that people aren't going to be there on it. So just again, the more time and support you can give us, we can plan for changes. Another question that came up was about recess play for the kindergarten class. And Sarah, thank you for acknowledging that it worked. So Kathy, would you mind talking a little bit about, I know that we're still in flux with some of these things as we're trying to figure out how to best use our custodial staff to support some of these things, but if you want to talk about our preliminary
Sure. It's not just for kindergarten classes, it's for all our students. It's important to get outside. So first and foremost, I do want to let folks know that I am encouraging teachers to take their classes outside during the day. So for example, if they're doing a read aloud, they can take them outside. We have plenty of green area. And we're lucky because we do have the Bridgewater Fairgrounds next door. So lots of spread out room. And I'm really, truly encouraging that. Lunch and recess has been divided. And I do want to talk about the whole school because that's important too. Lunch and recess has been divided. K through 2 will have recess first. And then 3 through 5 will have recess after they eat lunch, so that there's two waves. And the reason for doing that is because we're planning on setting up 3 stations so that kids can rotate each day through different stations. I don't have that completely outlined. We do have some ideas, but we're also working with our PE teacher because we want a lot of movement. So for instance, one of the ideas that we're starting to do is creating a bag for each child. And in the bag will be things like jump rope, will be like sidewalk chalk, things that they can do independently, but they can sit with a friend 6 feet apart and still do that and have conversation. I'm thinking of things like maybe frisbee golf, where they have their own frisbee, they throw it and they get points, in other words, towards cones. So there's lots of different things that we can work on and do with kids, but that's still work in progress. So I just want to reassure everyone, they are going to go outside. We are creating breaks during the day, as well as mask breaks, which can be outside. I also am buying hula hoops. The hula hoops can be put on the ground so a child can sit in the middle and they know their area, their private space. So we're trying to do a lot of visuals with that. With kindergarten also, we recognize that at the end of the day, they have something called centers, and that's typically a little bit more play. So we're also thinking of creative ways that we can still do that with individualized things. So maybe kids play with Legos, but they have their own bag of Legos. And maybe they're doing an arts and crafts kind of thing, but they have their own materials. So we're really trying to work through that. And I just had a meeting with the K through 2 teachers today through Zoom. And so they're trying to put together a few more activities. So know that there are things that we're planning, and we're definitely planning on trying to be outside a lot, even lunch outside. You know, we have plenty of space. The kids love sitting on the grass and eating their lunch. So if the weather is good, and for the next few months, we can do a lot of that. I hope that helped. Did it help?
So the one thing, and Kathy, you made it sound wonderful, and here are all the opportunities, and I'm going to come in and go, but you know that big, pretty playscape that they all want to play on, that I can't clean in between. And so that's going to be the one that, until we know that we're really in the green as a state, I'm not going to be able to support the use thereof, which I can only imagine as a 5-year-old, it's right there. But you know, this is where what you're hearing is us coming up with different activities that we can do to still make recess fun. This is not designed to be oppressive. We know there's a limitation here, but what is an opportunity? And that's really a lot of our planning. I saw Anne Marie asked a question about face shields. I have actually asked the Department of Public Health that question. I'm waiting for the answer because right now it says face covering. And so I'm hesitant to go a step further to say what my thought is. I really, and I remind everybody this on a regular basis, there is not one thing in my resume that ever said epidemiology, ever. So I'm going to ask the experts. So if it's okay, Anne-Marie, I will get back to you. And what I'm happy to do is when I get that answer back to you, Anne-Marie, I will copy it so that way if Claire can get that out to the entire community. I think your question has relevance to everybody. So thank you for asking that. I like to get thumbs up. All right. And Joseph, thank you for letting know that we covered that. Questions that are opening back up the floor. It got quiet for a moment. Yes, hang on. I see Charlie, but.
Sorry, that's one of my kids, but Katie, hi. When they are outside for recess and play, what is the mask policy outside? I want to do like as much prep through August with them as I can. Like if they have to be, you know what I mean? Just so that they get more familiar with it so it's not as overwhelming when we get to school.
That's an excellent question. And I'm going to say if we can get more than 6 feet, we are going to have the children, if they are outdoors, we want them to get that fresh air. So part of the
Okay.
breaks is going to be that. And again, that is dependent on our ability to, but as Kathy said, I don't want, part of me always fears giving an answer because then people will generalize it. What Kathy shared was also utilizing Bridgewater Fairgrounds. There's opportunities, and as long as we can capitalize on those, then I'd say yes. I don't want our children to go, oh, it's recess, I can take it off because indoor recess is gonna be a hot mess. So, but I'd say prepare them accordingly.
Okay.
Also share with you all, and I have to put this before the board, but I am seeking the opportunity to do some early dismissal the first week. So that way, number one, we're going to be in the hottest weeks of the year. It's going to have masks. We're going to be getting used to all of these things. So we're going to be looking into that opportunity. So just know we appreciate the fact that this is building up some of that resistance to, or I'm going to say tolerance, not resistance, the tolerance to the masks. I can tell you again, we know what we've seen in summer school when it's been 3 hours that they're ready to get them off, but it's not that they're chopping at the bit at that 3 hour mark. We've just built up that preparation. So thank you, Katie, for making certain that you're doing that with your children in advance of school.
So I would recommend everybody practice. If you haven't been practicing, practice a little. I know I have a 4-year-old granddaughter, and she does a better job than I do keeping her mask on. And she's getting ready for kindergarten also. But do know, snack time, we can take kids out, separate them, they can get those masks off and breathe in that good fresh air. So we will be doing some of that. We will be mindful of that.
One other thing I know people have asked, and I'm going to put the question out in front. What happens if someone comes in without a mask? Students have to have a mask on. If there is a medical reason, that needs to be brought to the attention of the school, and at that point, we will have to work with the family independently, because we do need to, for public safety, have all of the conditions met to keep kids safe. So we are saying that masks are mandatory. And Nikki, I see that your hand is raised. And thank you for utilizing the function.
I'm learning all of it all of a sudden. A question about face masks. There was the question about the shields, but there are so many different types of masks on the market, the ones that you buy, the homemade, the scarf things around. Do you guys have any rules or regulations on what type of mask that you guys want, or is it something that we know that will stay securely on their face?
It's something secure on their face. I can say we also, as a district, have purchased masks for kids. So if we find that one is kind of, sometimes they're a little loose and hanging down below, or if it becomes a chin guard, not by choice, but it's falling, we have other masks to provide for students if it gets wet, what have you. We have not put the requirements. We are saying it's the face covering that we're looking for. And again, we're still optimizing our classrooms to get to the 6 feet. That is our safe zone too. So really it's all of those protections together that we're hoping it really does contain any spread. But no, we have not put out any parameters. And so I can't say that we've been given anything that says it can't be this. There is going to be, we know, there's going to be some kids where I would say it needs to be laundered. We know that those are things that are just good practices, but we know that that's not always going to be the case. So we're going to really spend a lot of time with the students in the beginning of the year talking about not touching their face and, how to remove their mask. Or if you see somebody else's mask, like, I know you want to be sweet, sweetie, but no, you can't touch that. Like it's crazy how antisocial I feel like we're teaching our kids to be. And please know that that's not by design. We're gonna say things like, we know you want to get it, we're going to leave it there until its owner comes to get it, you know, but it is one where some of that mask health and choices, I'm going to say, we're going to ask parents to just be vigilant and supporting that, having it come in with this child when they walk into school. We will give them a mask that can go home with them. If you get a mask, excellent, that's yours to keep. I don't want them back, you know. So we want to make certain we're providing. I see I have a question, and the question was, are special education teachers floating between the 3 schools? The specials teachers, I'm sorry, I read too much into that. And I'm going to say I'm very proud of the elementary team. Actually, Kathy and Emily worked together with our director of curriculum, and what they've decided to do, instead of having a rotation of our specials teacher, because then we're having a spread throughout our 3 towns, the specials teachers will be at a single school for, I think, 4 weeks, Kathy, was that correct? 4 weeks, and then they go to the other school. So that means there will be 4 weeks of music class. So every special they have for 4 weeks will be music. And then the next rotation they will have every, you know, for that 4 weeks, it will be gym time. And for the next, you know, so this way it does prevent some of that spread going around. And it's also the protection of our staff too. Having our staff exposed to 400 children is not safe for them either. So I'm very proud of the work that our elementary team did to make certain that that safety factor was considered. So the question I have is, how does distance learning look, and would it be interactive for students at home? And I'm going to say interactive is probably a loose term right now. They will have the times in which direct instruction will be provided, so they will be able to gain access to the direct instruction that is being provided within the classroom. They will be provided the activity and that learning assignment. They will be turning in that learning assignment to the teacher, and they will get that learning assignment corrected back to them from the teacher. So the interaction tends to be more along those lines. As far as interrupting the teacher during that lesson time, we're still trying to figure out, we may have some of the supports, or even, you know, we got so used to having line leaders for job responsibilities. One of our students may, in the older grades, have a computer in front of them and ask the questions that are coming in the chats for them. This comes down to some management that we're still trying to work out. It is not a natural flow, but I can tell you it is not going to be as interactive as the in-person. Again, I don't want to overpromise something, as we know it's not to the degree of education that would be for in-person. Will the children be allowed to socialize? If so, how does that look? That's a great question, Mallory. I think we're going to teach all the kids to be loud talkers. We do want socialization. So we do want to have times where they can talk, and recognizing they're not going to be able to whisper in the hallways. So again, providing some of those opportunities. Morning meeting is going to look different, but yet we still want to hear about their days. We still want to hear about what they had to do. But yes, children will be facing forward. Children will be in their own environment. So it's not sharing of materials, it may be sharing of conversation more so. We really will be making certain that physical distance is occurring. But no, we want them to socialize. We want them to talk to one another. That's okay, Mallory? All right. Thank you. All right, and I have about another 10 minutes, so I want to make certain that if there are questions that are pressing, and I'm also going to say to you, just because this session ends does not mean we are closed to any further questions. So please know, I'm hoping that if anything that this does is it breaks down any barrier. I want your emails. Kathy wants your questions. Like, this is where we want to make certain whatever choice you make, it's because we've given you the most information to make the best choice for your family. We have so much right now that we don't know, that if we can give you and share what we have, I want to do that. The question Anne Marie asked was, would we be required to buy school supplies done because the students aren't sharing? Some of our ordering that we've done is to individualize the material. So we are prepared to supply these things as a school district. Make no mistakes about it, COVID is very expensive for our schools. We've had to add classes. There's a lot of things that were not in our budget. And if you feel best sending your child in with their own materials, we will certainly support that. But I'm going to also say we are never going to shrug our responsibility as a school system to support your children. So we are supplying.
I just wanted to say that in the past, we have had a supplies list out, but this last year and this year, we have not done so. There may be on an occasion a teacher is looking for something and might send a note home, but for the most part, we will have all the supplies that they need. And if we're struggling, we'll probably hit PTO up and look for their support, maybe with stuff like that.
Gone are the days of the communal, so things that kids used to share. So instead of tissue boxes, we'll probably say, can you just send in packets of tissues? That's kind of a change and shift. We are looking to have wipes. There may be a point in which we know the run on wipes happened, and we may say, hey, anybody who's got a Costco card, we need some help. But I'm going to say to you, we recognize there is an added expense as we make it individualized, but we do want to make certain that the children have what they need to learn.
Okay, great, thanks. Sorry, we're new to the school district, so this is all, I don't know what you guys are doing.
That was a great question. That was a really good question.
And I'm also going to say to you, welcome to the best school district, and I think you've got everybody here. So I see that Diana had the question. So, and I love that. Nope, that's not even a question. That's just the best statement you could ever make. Good things.
Oh, yeah. I am going to be letting you know there's some playground things I want.
But in the end, this is the moment in which I'm going to say, I want to find us opportunities in disappointment. We know that there are going to be things kids need to know coming back. It's not going to look the same. Our teachers. And I watched as you all drove that parade and the kids who are reaching out to do these virtual hugs. And it was amazing. Wow. And kids need to already be prepared mentally. We're not going to be able to hug them back. We're not going to be able to hold their hands in the hallway. We're going to be providing support through communication. We're going to talk them down where we can. But there's something so precious about a hug that we're not going to be able to offer. And so I need you to impress upon your children that we love them. School is going to look different, but it's still going to be fun. It's just a different kind of fun. Okay. All right. Well, I have to thank Diana for setting this whole thing up. I thank you all for taking the time out. And we will post this on Facebook. I will also post this on the YouTube channel. So that way, if my answers change, you guys can all call me out on it. But it's also to say, we're partners in this. We absolutely love your children, and we're going to do our very best to care for them. So thank you all for coming out tonight.
Thank you. It's good seeing you all.